Affairs of the National Assembly, and that over the Senate, that is the National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations over the Senate. So those are members walking in. Remember, the chair has been taken, but the House lacks the quorum, or rather the requisite quorum. So once that quorum is achieved, then the members or the House will commence its business. The report by the Committee, Public Debt and Privatization, this is a report on the Consolidated Fund Services expenditures for the supplementary estimates 1 for the financial year 2024-2025 is part of the business that, as the members reconvene this afternoon, will be transacting, considering this particular report, a report that was laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 24th of July, the year 2024. Already debate kicked off on the floor of the House, and if this business is transacted this afternoon, then it will be a resumption of a debate that was adjourned on the August 8th, the year 2024. The petition, public petition, all right, that is at the far right end of your screen. That is the Sergeant at Arms indicating to the Speaker and the Clerk that the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast. Good afternoon.
Clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Order, members on their feet. Take your seats. Order, members. Take the nearest seat. Order, honorable member. Take the nearest seats. Members at the bar. Ali is the nearest seat. What does that mean to you? Thank you, honorable members. I have a small communication, honorable members. I wish to welcome you back to the House for the third and last part of the third session of the 13th Parliament. I know that the recess was a working break for most committees, given the vetting of nominees proposed for appointment to various state offices and other priority matters that were referred to committees before and during the recess period. Nevertheless, it's my hope that you managed to spend some valuable time with your families and constituents and are now rejuvenated and ready to tackle the business that lies ahead. Honorable members, as we resume our sittings, the House is expected to transact several priority business, some of which is already before committees. Order, Honorable Kajwang. This includes consideration of nominees for appointment as Inspector General of the National Police Service and the Director General of the Competition Authority, which have statutory timelines. Additionally, the House shall consider key bills that are at various stages of consideration, including 4 National Assembly bills and 2 Senate bills that are currently under mediation stage. These are the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2022. With regard to this bill, you will recall that on 1st August 2024, this House considered and rejected some of the Senate amendments to the bill necessitating mediation on the bill. Consequently, I proceeded to appoint 9 members to the Mediation Committee and designated Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, CBS MP, who is also the sponsor of the bill, as the co-chairperson. In reference to this, I have since received communication from the Senate designating the following senators to the committee: Senator James Morango MP, Senator Richard Onyonga ABS MP, Senator David Wafula MP, Senator Catherine Muma MP, Senator Samson Cherarke MP, Senator Agnes Mudama MP, and Senator Esther Okenyuri MP. Honorable members, now that the Senate has appointed members to the Mediation Committee, the committee is fully constituted and should embark on attempting to develop a mediated version of the bill in accordance with the provisions of Article 113 of the Constitution. In regard to the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2022, it's also a bill undergoing mediation. The bill was referred to a mediation committee that is co-chaired by Honorable Joash Nyamoko MP, the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Lands. The third bill under mediation is the Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2023. The mediation committee is co-chaired by the Honorable Kangoko Bowen MP, chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water, and Irrigation. The Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, sponsored by the leader of the majority party, is another bill awaiting mediation. The bill was referred to a mediation committee that is co-chaired by the Honorable George Murugara CBS MP, chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. The Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022, which is sponsored by Senator Samson Cherarge MP, is the fifth bill also awaiting to be processed through mediation under Article 113 of the Constitution. The bill was lodged at second reading on 5th March 2024. It was referred to a mediation committee that is co-chaired by the Honorable Eric Muchangi MP, chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor. The Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2022, which is sponsored by Senator Danson Mungatana MP, was lost at second reading on 12th March 2024, is also awaiting mediation. It was referred to a mediation committee that's co-chaired by Honorable David Gikaria, CBS MP, chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry, and Mining. Honorable members, Article 113 provides that a mediation committee must report back to both houses with an agreed version of the bill or lack thereof within 30 days of its establishment. I urge co-chairpersons and the mediation teams representing the House to expedite consideration of the 6 bills for their progression to the next stage. This will bring a timely conclusion to the bicameral process relating to these bills. Members at the bar, take the nearest seats. The House is expected to consider Senate amendments, if any, to 3 bills passed by the House before the recess that are meant for financing of our counties. These are the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill 2024, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024, and the County Government Additional Allocations Bill 2024. On behalf of the leadership of the House, and indeed on my own behalf, may I reiterate our readiness and availability to support the House, its committees and its members, both individually and collectively, to discharge the great public duty bestowed on us. I therefore urge each one of us to diligently undertake your national duty, appreciating that your dedication to your constituents and the nation is paramount. Honorable members, you may also recall that I had informed the House of the temporary suspension of the question time to afford the newly appointed Cabinet Secretaries time to familiarize themselves with their respective dockets. Noting the passage of time since the Cabinet Secretaries assumed their new responsibilities and following consultations with the leader of the majority party, I now wish to inform the House that we will resume question time starting tomorrow, Wednesday, 18th September 2024. In this regard, as I indicated in the notice of questions in today's order paper, the Cabinet Secretary for Education is scheduled to appear in plenary tomorrow afternoon to respond to, among other matters, the progress in implementing the commitments made during the members' Kamkunji held on Tuesday, 20th August 2024, regarding the new higher education funding model. Additionally, the Cabinet Secretary shall also address the issues of concern in the education sector, including incidents of school fires and unrest across the country, and the general safety of our learners. Particular attention shall be paid to the tragic incident at the Hillside Endarasha Academy in Nyeri County, where we unfortunately lost 21 learners. This incident represents a tragic loss to the nation, and the House must be fully appraised of its cause and the remedial measures proposed to be taken by the Ministry. On behalf of the House, and indeed on my own behalf, I wish to extend our deepest condolences to the affected families. The Member of Parliament for Kieni has requested me to accord him an opportunity tomorrow to make a statement on the incident, and I'll do so. Having said that, honorable members, may I therefore request that we all stand to observe a minute of silence in honor of the young departed souls. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Thank you. Next.
Order number 3, messages.
Members, take your seats. Take the nearest seats. Order, members, take the nearest seat. Kwenya, the nearest seat. Thank you. Honorable McClap, you are out of order. Honorable members, I have a message from the Senate on the approval of a nominee for appointment to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41-4, I wish to report to the House that on 21st August 2024, I received a message from the Senate regarding the approval of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho for appointment to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable members, the message conveys that the Senate, by a resolution passed on 20th August 2024, approved the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Honorable members, you recall that the approval hearings for the nominee for Inspector General of the National Police Service were conducted jointly by the relevant committees of the two houses of Parliament in line with established practice and in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 245(2)(a) of the Constitution. Accordingly, the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security is expected to table the joint report on the vetting of the nominee this afternoon. Consequently, the House Business Committee has scheduled the said report for consideration by the House tomorrow, Wednesday, 18th September 2024, during the morning sitting. The House is accordingly guided. Next.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I would like to lay papers on behalf of the Leader of Majority. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. 1. The following legal notices from the Minister of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. A. Legal notice number 120 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Safety and Quality Regulations 2024. Legal notice number 121 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Beach Management Unit Regulations 2024. C. Legal notice number 122 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Inland Fisheries Regulations 2024. Legal notice number 123 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Fish Levy Trust Fund Order 2024. Legal notice number 124 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development General Regulations 2024. Legal notice number 125 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Marine Fisheries Regulations 2024. And H. Legal notice number 127 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management Development Recreational Fisheries Regulations 2024. 2. Legal notice number 130 of 2024 relating to the Pest Control Products Registration Regulations 2024 and the explanatory memorandum from the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock Development. 3. Legal notice number 131 of 2024 relating to the Kenya Defence Forces Court Martials Appeals Rules 2024 and the explanatory memorandum from the Minister of Defence. 4. The proposed budget ceiling for each constituency for the financial year 2024-2025 from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board. 5. Honorable Speaker, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund, NGCDF, for the year ended 30th June 2024 and the certificates therein in respect of the following constituencies: Belgut, Bomachoge Borabu, Borabu, Dagoretti North, Embakasi Central, Embakasi East, Embakasi North, Embakasi South, Embakasi West, Juja, Kabete, Kaloleni, Kiambu, Kikuyu, Kirinyaga Central, Konoin, Kuria West, Langata, Lari, Makadara, Nyaribari Chache, Nyaribari Masaba, Ruiru, Sigowet Soin, Wajir East, and West Mugirango. Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Committee on Administration and Internal Security, Tongoyo.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday 17th, September 2024. Report of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security, and the Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations on the vetting of Mr. Douglas Kancha Kiroche as the Inspector General of National Police Service.
Thank you. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Gakuya.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 17th September 2024. Report on the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on the budget implementation monitoring for the FY 2022-2023 for the following State Department. Vote 1173, the State Department for Cooperatives. Vote 1174, State Department for Trade. Vote 1175, the State Department for Industry. Vote 1176, the State Department for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. And vote 117, the State Department for Investment Promotion. I beg today.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 33(1)(c), I rise to seek leave of the House for the adjournment of the House for the purpose of discussing a definite matter of national importance regarding the implementation of the competence-based curriculum student transition. Honorable Speaker, as enactment of the CBC continues, the Pioneer CBC class is expected to transition to grade 9 commencing in January 2023. However, this transition has caused increased apprehension among parents and widespread concern on the preparedness of the education sector with regard to the transition. Of importance, Mr. Speaker, is the matter of infrastructure, which was initially to be lodged within secondary schools. However, the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms recommended for the transition to remain in primary schools. Additionally, the practicality of putting up classrooms and other facilities like laboratories by December 2024 before the start of grade 9 lessons in January 2025 is in doubt. At present, the transition is also marred with the issue of shortage of JSS teachers, crucial to the success of the program. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek leave for adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national concern with a view to exploring possible solutions in order to advise the key players, stakeholders, and the country at large. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members?
Thank you. Do you have the requisite support numbers? Thank you. Honorable Mbui, you have an overwhelming support for the motion of adjournment. Other members, Honorable Mbui, you will be allocated to move your motion at 5:30. 5:30. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security, Tongoyo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the notice of the following motion, that taking into consideration the finding of the Joint Committee on National Assembly, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security, and the Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, in its report on the vetting of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kiroche for the appointment as Inspector General of the National Police Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 17 September 2024, and pursuant to the provision of Section 12(1) of the National Police Service Act Cap 84 and Section 3 and 8 of the Public Appointment Act Cap 7F, this House approved the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kiroche, CBS, OGW, as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade, Gakuya.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopt the reports of the Department Committee on Trade, Industry Comparison on Budget Implementation, monitoring for FY 2022-2023 for the following State Department, laid on this table of this House on Tuesday, 17th September 2024. Vote 1173, the State Department for Cooperatives. Vote 1174, the State Department for Trade. Vote 1175, the State Department for Industry. Vote 1176, the State Department for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Department. And vote 117, the State Department for Investment Promotion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Member for Saboti.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44, 2C, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Department Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the upgrading of road networks in Saboti constituency to bitumen standards. Honorable Speaker, the road networks of Saboti constituency have been in a deplorable state for the several years, posing significant challenges to the residents and impeding socio-economic development in the region. Specifically, Kitale-Kipsongo Kinyoro Road, that is C626, Kambimiwa-Kaptama Road, that is B13, and Babton-Endebes Road, B123, measuring approximately 79 kilometers, which are in dire need of construction and upgrading to bitumen standards. These roads, which primarily serve as routes of transportation of goods and lives, have deteriorated to a point that they are impassable during the rainy seasons, hampering the movement of the residents. Sadly, the residents' outcry for better roads has been in vain, and there is urgent need to address the state of the named roads. Honorable Speaker, it is against this backdrop that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Department Committee on Transport and Infrastructure on the following. 1. State when the Ministry of Roads and Transport intends to undertake construction works on Kitale-Kipsongo Kinyoro Road, C626, Kambimiwa-Kaptama Road, B13, and Babton-Endebes Road, B123 in Saboti constituency. 2. Provide details on the budget allocation for construction of the roads in the financial years 2023-2024 and 2024-2025, including the contract details for works on the named roads. 3. Provides details of the outstanding scope of works, schedule for commencement of the construction of the said roads projects, as well as the expected completion timelines. And lastly, explain the long-term plans by the ministry that have been put in place to ensure that Saboti constituency road network is upgraded to bitumen standards. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairman Rhodes, is GK in the House?
Over from there.
Yes, GK, 2 weeks. Give him the mic. There you are.
2 weeks is sufficient.
Thank you.
Speaker, sir.
Before I call the next honorable members, allow me to acknowledge in the public gallery the presence of Christ the King Kirwara High School from Gatanga in Muranga. On my behalf and on behalf of the House, we welcome the students and their teachers to the House of Parliament. Next, Badi Twalib.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 43.1, I wish to make a general statement regarding the untimely passing on of Asmok Patel, commonly referred to as Hasu, the owner of Mombasa Cement, that occurred on Monday, 29th August 2024, while he was being rushed to a private hospital in Nyali, Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, the late Hasu Patel of Mombasa Cement was my constituent. I was introduced to him in 2007 when I was a councillor by my father-in-law and former member of parliament for Changamwe constituency, the late Honorable Ramadhan Sef Kajembe, who was also a good friend of Hasu's father, the late Mzee Kanjibai. Honorable Speaker, the late Patel was the founder of one of the Kenya's biggest cement manufacturers, Mombasa Cement, through his late father, Mzee Kanjibai. He was also the director of Corrugated Sheets Limited in Kenya with his main office in my constituency in Mikindani, Jomvu constituency, as well as a Tororo Cement, which is based in Uganda. The passing on of Asmok Patel has robbed the people of Kenya, in particular the coast and the eastern region, where he operated his businesses, of a leader whose contribution to the county and the whole of country at large during his life will forever be treasured. Asmok Patel was an accomplished industrialist and a philanthropist. Honorable Speaker, through his foundation, Asmok Patel supported needy students across the country with scholarships. He has also sponsored various charitable causes across several industries. As a philanthropist, Asmok Patel championed environmental conservation, with the most notable one being an initiative where he supported the transformation of Kibarani dump site in Mombasa into a park. He also contributed to the health sector by contributing towards improving healthcare infrastructure and promoting access to healthcare for underprivileged communities, Mr. Speaker. For his efforts, Patel received the Moran of the Burning Spear MBS in 2021 and was appointed as a Kenya Chamber of Commerce and Industry Director. Honorable Speaker, his passing makes a dark moment not only for his family, Jomvu residents, and Mombasa County, but for the country at large. Kenya has lost a candid, devoted public servant, hard-working leader, and true son of Kenya, who endeavored to give everything for what he believed in with great courage, tenacity, and humanity, Mr. Speaker. He always reached out to national leaders from the county to chart the course for bettering the well-being of residents of the country. Honorable Speaker, I, Honorable Badi Twali Badi, express my heartfelt condolences to the family of the late Asmok Patel, the entire fraternity of Mombasa County, his friends, and the country at large for the loss of a fatherly, transformative leader. May the soul of the late Asmok Patel rest in eternal peace. I thank you, Mr. Honorable Speaker, and Father, I seek your indulgence to allow members to stand for a minute of silence in honor of the departed Asmok Patel of Mombasa Cement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 minute silence. We start.
You have no authority to say that. Take your seat. Murugara. Alpha Miruka, order by the Twalib. You finished, right? I give you 1 more minute. Don't overreach yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under your indulgence, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to say something on the death of my personal bodyguard, Mr. Charles Odera, which occurred on Friday following a road accident at Mikindani. Mr. Odera, he was a dedicated person to his work. I have been with him, Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, a friendly to my family, and I took him as a brother to me. I will stand with the family at all costs during this difficult moment, Mr. Speaker. He will be laid to rest on 28th of this month in Siaya County. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion to describe Odera, I want to say, diehards never die, but rest in peace. Rest in peace, my brother Odera. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alpha Miruka. Alpha Miruka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 295D, 2A, I rise to pay tribute to the former Member of Parliament for Bomachoge Chache, the late Honorable Simon Nyaundi Ogari, who passed away on Tuesday, 10 September 2024 in his home, Karen. Honorable Speaker, the late Honorable Simon Ogari was born 31st May 1956. He attended Nyansara and the Mugambi Primary School for his CPE, where he excelled and proceeded to Karnotunga High School for his O and A level certificates. Okay. The Honorable Gary then proceeded to the University of Nairobi for his undergraduate degree for Bachelor's of Quantity Survey between 1977 and 1980. The late Honorable Gary began his career as a quantity surveyor, founding his own consultants and rising through the ranks to eventually serve as a chairman of Institute of Quantity Surveyor, that's IQSK. He joined politics in 2009 following his election as the member for the larger Bomachoge and later formed the Bomachoge Chache constituency. Honorable Speaker, he was a studio legislator who contributed to Parliament and its committees, and the plenary were invaluable. He served as an assistant minister for transport, information and communication, and trade on the 10th Parliament and in the 11th Parliament. He served as a member of Committee on Powers and Privilege and a member of the Departmental Committee of Public Works, Roads and Transport. His legacy of dedicated service to the people of Bomachoge in the 10th Parliament, Bomachoge Chache in the 11th Parliament, will remain a guiding example for all of us in his leadership. Honorable Speaker, on my own behalf and the people of my constituency, I wish to take this opportunity to condole with the family of the late Honorable Simon Nyaundi Ogari, his relatives and friends, and the people of Kenya at large. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Alpha, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Next order. Oh, sorry. Yes, Whip. You want to be a joyrider?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to join Honorable Alpha Miruka in condoling with the family of the late Honorable Simon Ogari, who served in this House, Honorable Speaker, for 2 terms, 2 consecutive terms, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Ogari led a constituency called Bomachoge, which borders my constituency, Honorable Speaker. And in his time as a member of parliament, many people from my area, Honorable Speaker, especially those that fall within the boundary.
Order, honorable members. Maklap and Yokamkunji, you are hereby disbanded. Take your seats. Order. Order, Yegon and your team. Yegon and your team, order. I can hardly hear what the honorable member is saying.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, that during his time or tenure as a member of parliament, because his constituency happens to be, or the constituency that he led happens to be, very close to mine, and we actually share a very close boundary and a common school that, of course, people raise boundary issues sometimes by saying, it falls within South Mugrango, and others say it's within Bomachoge. But in his time as a member of parliament, Honorable Speaker, when disbursing bursaries, he would give people, regardless of where they came from, as long as they happen to be within that boundary jurisdiction, Honorable Speaker. Gusii region has lost a great son of the soil. Gusii region has lost a great leader. Gusii region has lost a public servant who dedicated his life for public service. And on behalf of the entire nation of Gusii and the people of South Mugrango, we say that may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Rueda. Clerk, switch off the unnecessary mics. There is one on your left.
Asante Bwana Spika, nami nichukue nafasi hii nitoe rambirambi zangu mimi na familia yangu na wataalamu kwa jumla kwa mheshimiwa aliofariki. Pia nami nichukue nafasi hii nitoe rambirambi zangu kwa familia ya Deputy Governor wa Lamu aliyefariki. Mungu aiweke roho yake pahali pema. Deputy Governor alikuwa mtu mzuri, mtu mwenye ukakamavu, na maskini ameacha familia ndogo. Mwenyezi Mungu aisaidie familia yake, ile pengo iliyoko Mungu aijaze ile pengo, na gavana wetu wa Lamu na watu wa Lamu County kwa jumla, Mwenyezi Mungu atupe subra na Mwenyezi Mungu atupe badali, na inshallah gavana Mungu amwezeshe afanye uamuzi wa busara. Natoa pole kwa watu wa Mpeketoni, familia na watu wote wa Lamu kwa niaba ya familia yangu na watu wangu wa Lamu Mashariki. Tumekosa mtu muhimu, lakini Mungu anampenda zaidi. Asante.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, alteration of the calendar of the House.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter its calendar as adopted on 14th February 2024 and amended on the 25th June, 26th June, and 7th August 2024 in respect of the third part of the third session of this year, so as to 1, commence the short recess on Friday, 18th October 2024, and resume regular sittings on Tuesday, 5th November 2024. Honorable Speaker, for the benefit of members, we were briefed in the House Business Committee that we were scheduled to resume today, sit for 4 weeks, break for 2 weeks, in accordance with the calendar that was approved on 7th August. then resume for another 6 weeks. So what we have agreed in the House Business Committee is to balance so that we will sit for 5 weeks, break for 2 weeks, short recess, and resume for another 5 weeks before the long Christmas recess. And I beg to move, Honorable Speaker, and request the Honorable Robert Mbui to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Order, honorable members on their feet. Take your seats. Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter its calendar as adopted on 14th February 2024 and amended on 25th June 2020, 25th June and 26th June, 7th August 2024, in respect of the third part of the third session 2024, so as to A, commence the short recess on Friday 18th October 2024, and 2, resume regular sittings on Tuesday 5th November 2024. I put the question. Honourable members, I now put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter its calendars adopted on 14th February 2024 and amended on 25th June, 26th June, and 7th August 2024 in respect of the third part of the third session 2024, so as to 1, commence the short recess on Friday 18th October 2024, and 2, resume regular sittings on Tuesday 5th November 2024. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Mung Beans Bill, Senate Bill number 13 of 2022. Second reading, resumption of debate.
Honorable members, this is the bill on dengue beans. It was moved and seconded. It is now open to debate. I want to believe that those on the screen are for this. Owen Bayer, are you for this? Paul Biego, are you for this? Maina Madenge, are you for this? Yes, Murugara, are you for this?
Yes, I am, and I was on the feet when actually the motion was, the bill was cut short.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I had not done a minute anyway.
The record doesn't show so. But,
sorry about that, Honorable.
How much time had you consumed?
Maybe a minute.
1 minute?
1 minute, possibly.
So you can start afresh?
I can start afresh.
Go ahead. Give on Murugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this bill with very good reasons, some of which are captured by the Committee on Agriculture when they actually retreated to look at the Senate bill. Mr. Speaker, so lastly, we were here on the 15th of August 2024 when the bill was supposed to be debated, as it had been tabled the previous day and seconded. The morning of the 15th, we woke up to very sensational reporting by some media houses, including social media, that this bill had dangerous clauses to the farmers of dengue and that it had not undergone proper public participation. We actually looked at the bill. In as much as it has a lot that is wanting, it has not been properly drafted by the Senate. In fact, it's muddled up. It's a bill that ought to be cleaned, and it can only be cleaned if it is either rejected or massive amendments are made to it. But 2 reasons why I actually oppose this bill is because of want of public participation. Mung beans, unfortunately, the name is not even suitable because any Kenyan hearing us debating on Mung beans would wonder what this is. It's a lot of English which is foreign to us. Dengu is the popular name of what we know as green grams. And I think that is the proper English. But we have a new name that has come up by which we should define these beans, which is foreign to all of us. Therefore, this bill should actually be titled the Dengu Bill, so that just like most of the crops that are known to us, we would know what law we are formulating and it relates to which crop, and Kenyans out there would be able to make a follow-up of what it is that we are saying. So if we are to amend at all this bill, we should call it the Dengu Bill. Number two, from the committee observations, it is clearly noted that the Dengu beans, or the Dengu itself, is grown in some counties that are in the eastern region of the country. Those counties include Kitui, Makueni, Tharaka Nithi, Machakos, Embu, Meru, Taita Taveta, and Kirinyaga. However, it is not captured in the Senate report that this bill was actually taken to those farmers so that it can be debated under public consideration. So Kenyans, and especially the farmers in these areas, including my own area of Tharaka in Tharaka Nithi, on the 15th of August 2024, were extremely anxious when they were told some of the provisions which are in this bill. The reporting may not have been accurate, but the information to them was that there was a law being formulated to regulate the growing of dengue in the country, but that law was not taken to them for approval, and therefore, including myself, we have been instructed to actually reject this bill. Number two, when we look at the public participation, even by the Committee on Agriculture, it was through adverts. Adverts were placed in the papers. The public did not respond, apart from a few corporations which have interest in the crop, including the research institutions. The net effect was this: we have a bill that has not undergone proper public participation. This bill should actually be withdrawn. It should actually be rejected by this House if it cannot be withdrawn, so that first and foremost we have proper public participation. Take the bill to Tharaka so that it goes round. Take the bill to Kitui County. Take it to Meru, Embu, Kirinyaga, Taita Taveta, Kitui, Machakos, and Makueni, so that citizens can actually discuss the contents of the bill. Number two, I oppose the bill because it does not seem to address the problems that bedevil this crop to the root. The Committee on Agriculture has made very important observations that the crop, in spite of being grown widely, does not fetch a lot in the market. This is because we have not had proper production, husbandry of the crop, and also the government has not given the support that is required. The net effect is, if we are to have a law on the dengue beans or the Mung beans or whatever they are called, or whatever they are going to be called, then we must see clearly what role the government is going to play. If farmers are to be registered so that they get government help on growing this crop, the mode must be clearly set out so that there is no misinformation. Because the misinformation that is doing the rounds in the counties is that you will not be able to grow dengue unless you are registered with the county government. and that failure to register with the county government will attract a fine of not more than 1 million shillings or a prison term of 2 years or both. That may not be entirely correct from this bill, but farmers need to understand exactly why they are being called upon to actually register. We must also have clearly defined roles of those persons who actually buy dengue, and they are known as brokers. These are the people who have actually confined the growers of dengue, including those in the Raka, to penalty because they buy this crop at very cheap prices. Therefore, we must have regulations on how the pricing, the marketing, and everything else that goes with the selling of the crop is regulated. Another reason why I oppose this bill is that it has provisions regarding what the county governments are supposed to do. And those provisions are elaborate. That the county government will do this and that. The county government is prescribed to do as follows, the net effect of which is for the House of Parliament, the Senate and the National Assembly to make rules and regulations regarding county governments. I do not think this House has the power to do so because counties are devolved units and they have their own assemblies. It is those assemblies that are supposed to make laws governing what county governments do. Therefore, inasmuch as the Agriculture Committee has proposed elaborate amendments to the bill, I still feel this bill is not properly done. It was not properly drafted. In fact, the Senate never thought through about this bill. It appears to have been rushed, as a result of which it has found itself here when it is half-baked. We must remove that half-baking by actually returning this bill to the Senate so that they can give it a proper consideration. Once a proper bill is formulated through proper public participation and we are made to contribute to it, we will no doubt support it because the dengue crop requires a very elaborate law that is going to help us grow this crop. We are able to produce it and we are able to market it as is required. In the countries like India and the others that are cited here, the crop is actually grown in what I would term as systematic production. Here in Kenya, it is grown as ad hoc. We must bring this to an end. With those remarks, I do oppose the bill.
John Waluke, are you for this bill?
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not contributing on this.
Beatrice Elachi, are you for this bill? No.
No, Speaker.
Maina Madenge, are you for this bill?
No, no, Speaker.
Jerry Maina, are you for this bill?
No, Speaker.
Daniel Carrido, are you for this bill?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Then get off the screen. Kuria Kimani, are you for this bill? Justice Kemei, are you for this bill? The Dengue bill. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the Mung beans bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill, when it came from the Senate, we looked at it as a Committee of Agriculture. And indeed, the way the Honorable Murungaru puts it, we made quite a number of changes to be able to support the Senate who originated the bill. When we did this, Mr. Speaker, we recognized that mung beans, or ndengu, as is famously known in this country, is a very critical crop when it comes to food nutrition and when it comes to food self-sufficiency in this country. And given a regulatory environment that is ideal, we will be able to meet the objectives of having this crop in this country. Mr. Speaker, the issue of public participation has come in. We as a Committee of Agriculture did our level best within the confines of the time given in terms of preparation of the bill. Let me put it very clearly, Mr. Speaker, that we are not in bringing this bill to Parliament asking for the formation of another parastatal to govern the growth and marketing of mung beans. We are simply saying let's have the crop included among the scheduled crops which are being handled by the Agriculture and Food Authority in this country. That way, we will be able to make sure that the environment in which it is promoted, the environment in which it is grown, the environment in which it is marketed is governed by the laws of this country. The concerns raised by Honorable Murungaru were addressed. And we would wish that instead of us throwing away the bill, let us look at it at the committee stage and make the necessary recommendations so that this bill can be used to improve the growth of mung beans in this country. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do support and maybe ask my colleague who is in front of me to bring in the changes he so desires so that we can have this crop governed in terms of regulatory purposes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ekomas Mutuse, are you for this bill? No.
Mr. Speaker, I can contribute.
No, you can. Are you?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the mung beans bill, which is a Senate bill. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, ndengu is majorly grown in the southeastern region of this country, Tharaka and other ASO regions. And therefore, it is an important crop in terms of the household economies of the constituents whom I represent. Mr. Speaker, principally, we support the fact that we need a legal regime to regulate the production, marketing, and value addition for mung beans rather than ndengu, so that our farmers can maximize on their farming. As you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker, currently, ndengu is neither classified as a food crop, neither is it classified as a cash crop. And for that purpose, and for the lack of a legal regime, there has never been a channel for government funds, taxpayers' money, to assist farmers in terms of how they farm, produce, market, and value-add ndengu. And therefore, principally, we support this law for that particular purpose. And I would wish to agree with members who have raised concerns in terms of the possibility of levying farmers. And I know because I have discussed with farmers in my constituency. Farmers are averse that should the law pass in its current form, there will be levied monies so that growing ndengu will become a privilege of a few because it will attract levies. And rather than throwing away the bath water with the baby, I am of the opinion that we can propose amendments at the committee stage so that we cure some of these rather oppressive provisions in the Senate bill. Mr. Speaker, secondly, where I come from, our people do not farm coffee. Our people are not farming cotton as it should be. Our people are not farming tea. And therefore, essentially, there is need to have pulses, which are ndengu, peas, and others, including fruits in future, as a cash crop for that particular region. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I support the proposed mung beans bill with amendments. We will also be proposing at the committee stage, Mr. Speaker, that we change the title of the bill from mung beans to ndengu, because I am sure many in this country, including members of parliament, are hearing mung beans for the first time. It is a strange word. And there is no need to import words from other jurisdictions when already in Kenya we know that Ndengu is Ndengu. So we will also be proposing amendments so that it is no longer Mung Beans Bill. We'll be proposing that we call it Ndengu Bill, so that if this House so passes it, then it will be the Ndengu Act. Mr. Speaker, with that, I support and will be proposing amendments to cure some of the oppressive provisions that have been highlighted by our people through media, and also by reading the law, realizing the issue of levies and the issue of the title. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now there is no more. Charles Ngusia. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And
Mr. Speaker,
you are not on the screen.
From the onset, let me say I'm supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker. But with the reservation that we need to make some amendments as put by Honorable Murugara. Mr. Speaker, let me start by thanking our Senator Kitui County who came up with this bill. And I think it was for the importance of our people, the farmers, actually growing this mung bean or dengu, the way we have put it, Mr. Speaker. Some of the objective actually was to promote the productivity of this crop and generate higher income for the farmers. And others was to provide for framework for the implementation of this effective marketing strategy, Mr. Speaker. With all these factors, Mr. Speaker, I have listened very carefully to one of my colleagues who actually went through it. And I concur in totality that we need more public participation in order for this bill actually to go through, Mr. Speaker. But let me put, there was a lot of negative publicity on this bill, but I urge the members actually to read what is in the bill before opposing it, because I think it is very important, Mr. Speaker. It has gone to the extent of even setting the duties of the authorities who are supposed to be here, and I have gone through them. They are keenly okay. Duties of the county executive, which is actually agriculture is a devolved function. And Mr. Speaker, I don't have much to say, but I'll be going through this bill and proposing some of the amendments which are contentious, especially the fees levies being done on it. With those few remarks, I support.
Mulemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From where I come from, the mung beans are not grown. But having been a keen follower of the matters of this bill, and I was there when the bill was moved, Honorable Speaker, I want to report to you that one item I noticed about the bill when it was being moved by the Chair Agriculture, the bill itself was far much shorter.
Zengu.
Yes.
Yes.
The bill itself was far much shorter than what was later added on by the committee members in terms of proposal, amendments, and the other issues that they wanted to change on that particular bill. In fact, the committee itself had a much longer story than the bill itself. That was the first thing I noticed. Number two, Honorable Speaker, I had the privilege of sitting where you are that particular day, and I had to call one of the professionals in agriculture to ask, what are these mung beans? Because I did not know what mung beans were. So I was later told this was ndengu. But later on the next day, what I noticed is that the publicity this bill had was extremely negative. And it looked like the way it was being framed, especially for those members of parliament who come from areas where these beans are grown on ndengu, it looked like the farmers feel and know that if the bill goes through, then there will be punitive aspects to them to pay for them to grow the crop. And I noticed that there was no understanding between the people whom the bill was being made for and the bill itself per se. And therefore, it looked like there were royalties being put on the people who will be growing these ndengus. I propose that two things have to happen for the sake of a good bill and for the farmers of the mung beans or dengu. That either the committee must take it up very thoroughly and do extreme total change, including the title possibly, or we take it back to the Senate so that it's properly done with public participation. Honorable Speaker, I think I take the second option. I see a situation whereby somebody knows a good idea but has not shared with the people on the ground. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Phyllis Barto, are you for this? There being no interest in further contributions, I call the mover to reply. Where is Honorable Nzengu? Why has he orphaned his own bill? Clerk. Honorable members will defer the bill to be put on the order paper for Thursday for the mover to reply. Those who have an interest, tell Honorable Nzengu to come and reply to the bill. Next order.
Order number 10, the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2023, second reading.
Majority Leader. Owen, is it you? Dr. Mutunga, you are the one moving?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Honorable Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to move the Coffee Bill, which is the Senate Bill number 10 of 2023. Honorable Speaker, this bill was read the first time on 16th of April 2024 and subsequently committed to the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock Development for consideration. Honorable Speaker, the committee has considered this bill and invited stakeholders for public participation to submit memoranda and their comments on the bill, and the same has been captured in the revised version of the bill and will be brought to this House during the third reading. Honorable Speaker, a brief background on the coffee industry in this country. Coffee, Honorable Speaker, was first planted in Kenya upon introduction in Taita Hills at a place called Bura. That was in 1893. In 1900, coffee was planted at Voi under irrigation on trial basis. And later on, in 1904, it was planted in Kikuyu. That is how coffee found itself in the Kenyan Islands. Honorable Speaker, today, coffee is grown in 33 counties out of 47. So it's really a crop that is of socioeconomic nature in most of the counties of this country. It is grown by not less than 800,000 smallholder farmers and not less than 4,000 estates, which means it is both an estate or land scale and a small scale older crop. In the 1980s, Kenya was a leading exporter in the region on coffee. But now, coffee is number 3 in terms of our exports after tea and horticulture. There is, however, great potential for coffee to get back home as the leader crop in terms of export, because we have what it takes. We have the good soils, we have good varieties innovated by our research institutions, we have good farmers who can produce coffee, and we have the right climate. What has been missing in this country, or what has affected the coffee farmers, are the challenges that I might wish to outline, Honourable Speaker. One of the key challenges the farmers of this country face is that coffee is low income earning, despite being a high income crop. Kenyan coffee is very high standard, is of very high quality, is a preferred commodity across the globe. In fact, in most of the outlets, Kenyan coffee would find itself as a specialty crop in most of the prestigious markets. There is also delayed payment to the farmers as a challenge, and in most cases, the payments are meager. And that's one of the things that has affected the farmers of this country. The other issue, Honourable Speaker, is the mismanagement of the cooperatives through which the Kenyan farmers process their coffee. Coffee is initially taken to the primary cooperatives where the primary processing, or what is called pulping, takes place. So, the other issue that has been affecting the Kenyan farmers is the lack of direct access by the farmers themselves to the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. This is the coffee trading platform. Lack of access makes the farmers not understand exactly what happens, and therefore deals cut around there probably may impact upon them negatively. Honourable Speaker, in the initial stages, coffee have performed very well in this country. Kenya lags behind countries like Ethiopia and Uganda in terms of production, and in some cases, productivity. Productivity in the sense that we are looking at the yield per tree and production in terms of the collective total that we produce. Honourable Speaker, smallholder farmers who place on the market 70% of the coffee that we sell suffer poorer productivity and higher production costs compared to the estates. In this case, it is expensive to produce coffee on a small scale. This is mainly due to the governance issues that you find in the cooperatives, as I mentioned earlier, the insufficiency of the cherry processing, which burdens smallholder farmers with higher processing costs. Lack of transparency within the factories themselves and the management attributes, and therefore the farmers do not get to know the exact reality about their crop. Productivity of coffee in this country, Honourable Speaker, is very low. I wish to state that on average, a Kenyan coffee tree, Kenyan farmer coffee tree, would give us 2 kilos per tree, when we have the potential to get 20 kilos per tree, or even more. Honourable Speaker, on a small scale level, we can only get 2 kilos per tree. On large scale, because they have been able to improve a little bit on the management, we are able to get about 4 kilos per tree. That is still very little compared to what is possible. We should aim at not less than 20 kilos per tree because it is possible and it is happening right here in Kenya. On the other hand, Honourable Speaker, value addition for coffee has been very low. We are utilizing only 30% of the installed capacity to process coffee in this country, which means we have capacity to process a lot of coffee, but 70% of that capacity lays idle. Honourable Speaker, on the other hand, when you look at the milling, the removal of parchment from the bin, the milling aspect of it, Honourable Speaker, we are only utilizing 13% of the installed capacity, which means 87% of the capacity stays idle. And this is because coffee was abandoned by the farmers out of the problems that I've highlighted. So value addition is poor, and therefore it means that most of the coffee in this country is not value added. Honourable Speaker, our consumption capacity as at now is 5% of the coffee that we produce. That means we sell 95% of the coffee. What that tells you is that the low processing capacity or value addition capacity of the country has only been able to turn around 5%, which we consume as a country. The rest of the coffee we sell as raw materials for others to process. We export jobs. Honourable Speaker, we need to embark on processing coffee in this country so that we can be able to employ our youth. There are several government interventions that are noteworthy. The government of Kenya has set up what we are calling Cherry Advance Revolving Fund through the Coffee General Regulations of 2019. This revolving fund is supposed to stabilize the prices of coffee. Honourable Speaker, as we speak, already about 5.2 billion shillings have been moved to the farmers through payments of at least 80 shillings per kilo through the use of this fund. However, these measures have not significantly turned the sector around as we expect, so productivity is still low and production is low. Madam Speaker, we cannot miss out from comparing coffee in Kenyan coffee with the other countries and other sectors. The Kenyan's position on coffee globally is very, very low. Kenya's coffee sector continues to be a vital part of the country's economy, yet we have not been able to capture our market. Madam Speaker, we lost our quota in the world market. Kenya was exporting more than 120,000 metric tons of coffee, but we lost that quota because of mismanagement of the factories and of unbearance on the farmers on costs. Madam Speaker, we lag behind a country like Uganda and our neighbor Ethiopia in terms of this processing of coffee and in terms of the turnaround amounts. In terms of productivity, as I said earlier, we are only able to realize 2 kilos on a small scale basis as a country, and we are also able to realize 4 kilos when it comes to large scale production. Other countries in our neighborhood are able to realize more. And, Honourable Speaker, this is something we need to look at, and this is a mischief that has been cured through this particular bill. Honourable Speaker, when you look at market access, unlike Kenya, where smallholder farmers have limited access to the coffee exchange, other countries' farmers are able to access their coffee exchange platforms. That is something that needs to be looked into. When it comes to variety development, in terms of crop development, production of varieties through research, coffee research is domiciled in Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization as one of the research institutes. This is a specialized entity which should be reporting to a specific board to deal out the issues of productivity in terms of coming up with better varieties which are suited to better environments. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, this bill has come up to cure that particular mischief as well. Honourable Speaker, the donor dependency on the research institution, especially the Coffee Research Institute, ends up messing up or shifting the agenda. The agenda is influenced in the negative. It does not give us what we actually need. Honourable Speaker, the effect of all this is such that what brought all these issues is the abolition of the coffee research levy, which was around 2% of the coffee sold in 2016. That research levy, which was supporting our research institution to come up with better varieties like SL28, SL27, that7, Ruiru 11 and others, was abolished. Therefore, we did lose about 50% of the amount of money set to the coffee production research and productivity research in this country. And, Honourable Speaker, the Research Institute does not only produce better coffee varieties. The Research Institute goes further to innovate, to do technological development, produce technologies for coffee, basically also come up with innovations and management practices. And these management practices are transferred to the farmers so that they can be able to deliver a better, crop in the sector. Honourable Speaker, let me just highlight a few issues on the bill itself. The current status is such that coffee is managed under the Agriculture and Food Authority as one of the directorates within AFA. AFA has been managing the crop development, the promotion, the marketing, and the regulation of the production and marketing of the coffee in this country. This bill comes in with very specific objectives. And one of the objectives, Honourable Speaker, is to promote a globally competitive coffee industry. Make sure that the Kenyan coffee is globally competitive. It also purposes to provide a framework for the registration and licensing of various players within the coffee sector. So the licensing and the registration is very well captured in the bill. It also comes in to delineate the roles of the national government and the roles of the county government and the roles of the regulatory institutions and the role of research, as it were. We have specifically, in this particular bill, as identified the Coffee Research Institutes and transformed it into a Coffee Research and Training Institute. It's going to be a Coffee Research and Training Institute because it will be conducting training on technologies, innovations, and management practices, so that our farmers can be able to get better varieties to produce based on the agroecologies and based on the sizes of the farm, so that we can intensify on productivity for us to get better production. Therefore, there is a specific objective to promote evidence-based coffee research and the delivery of extension services towards development of the coffee sector. And this is where we are talking about production of technologies, innovations, and management practices. The final objective, Honourable Speaker, is to provide a framework for the establishment of Coffee Development Levy. Coffee Development Levy will be established to basically look at how do we support the research in coffee, how do we support the regulatory function, how do we support the marketing function. One of the things we've not done well in this country is marketed our coffee. There are many outlets in this world which buy our coffee as green bean and therefore use it for elite market. It fetches a lot of money out there, and we are not able to benefit from that kind of money because we sell our coffee as raw green bean. Honourable Speaker, when you look at this particular bill, first of all, the first thing that the bill does is to try and transfer regulations from the Agriculture and Food Authority, the regulation of the coffee from the Agriculture and Food Authority to the Coffee Board of Kenya. We are recreating the Coffee Board of Kenya. On the other hand, Honourable Speaker, the research function of the Coffee Research Institute has been hived out of the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization and placed directly under the Coffee Board of Kenya so that it may be better instructed to deliver for this particular industry. Honourable Speaker, the Coffee Board is established to regulate the industry, managed by the board and the CEO, with clear functions, delegated authority, as well as powers. And these are captured on the first four from the fourth clause to the 22nd clause. It's a very comprehensive bill. Honourable Speaker, the county government functions are effectively captured between 23rd and 25th clauses, and they are basically majoring on enacting local coffee laws for the county or county-specific coffee laws and the registration of various, licensing of the variety of operators within the county. So we have made provisions for the registration of the variety of operators within every county. In terms of the regulation provision, Honourable Speaker, this covers the production itself and the registration of various operators, various growers, various millers, the roasters, the processors, and licensing various entities that would like to do business in coffee, as well as regular reporting. And this is captured in clauses 26 to 38 of the bill. Honourable Speaker, in terms of production and processing, the proposed legislation basically governs production, as it were, governs material import and material export of coffee, the certification processes, the traceability, which is very key in terms of international trading systems today. They demanded to know where the coffee was produced and even how it was produced and how the social issues were taken care of. Was it produced by children? If it was produced by children or people who are under compulsion of some nature, they will not take that coffee. So they would like to know from which farm was it produced. So the bill is very careful to capture the traceability aspect. Honourable Speaker, coffee trending and marketing is also very well captured, and this is under the 49 to 39 to 59 clauses of the bill, which basically looks at the regulation at the local level, regulation at the national level, regulation of coffee at the international level, in terms of the trending patterns and in terms of the various aspects that need to be regulated and licensed, as well as the management of the exchange and the settlement to the farmers in terms of payment. That has also been very well captured in this particular bill. Quality assurance, Honourable Speaker, has also been very well captured in terms of ensuring compliance with the quality standards at the various levels through inspection and controls. And this has been captured in the bill if you look at clauses 63 to 60, no, clauses 60 to 62. Financial provisions of the coffee industry. This has also been very well captured. It specifies the funding, the various types of funding, including a development levy, which has been very well specified in the bill, and also the routine audits, which basically secures the fund and ensures the fund has done the right job. This is captured in clauses 63 to 68. Honourable Speaker, Coffee Research and Training Institute, which I mentioned, has also been very well taken care of, which focuses on coffee research and training based in Kiambu, where it has always been, towards production and the dissemination of technologies, innovations, and management practices. Honourable Speaker, finally, the coffee bill talks about the financial provisions of the institute, which are provided for, and then the miscellaneous and transitional arrangement. Transitional arrangement because we have the staff who are right now in the coffee directorate. These staff members, the properties or the assets and liabilities of the coffee sector will need to transit from the Agriculture and Food Authority to the Coffee Board of Kenya. So the transition arrangement are captured very well in clauses 92 to 107. That is the extent to which the bill has been covered. Honourable Speaker, to close my submission, my comments on the bill, even as I move, let me just discuss a few issues. What are the key deliverables in this particular bill? What are the expectations to the Kenyans, especially the Kenyan farmer? The bill promotes evidence-based coffee research and delivery of extension services for the development of the coffee sector. So we shall have a consistent and sustainable research system that is going to deliver a better sector than before. It also focuses on addressing the governance issues in the cooperatives, which has been really the problem, which has been the cancer in this particular sector. And also, it looks at addressing the inefficiencies in the processing and reducing the costs to improve on productivity, particularly for the smallholder farmers who are really overburdened by the cost within the industry. In terms of regulations, Honourable Speaker, the bill proposes transitioning the regulatory and the commercial roles currently undertaken by AFA to the board. It also additionally seeks to transit the research of coffee from what I said, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization to the institute, the Research and Training Institute. It also provides a framework for the establishment of the coffee development levy, which is a fund that will sustain activities within the coffee. It also identifies the variety of institutions that will be participating in this particular industry. And these include, there are several legislations on our speaker that are supportive to this particular legislation. And I wish to mention a few of them. The Crops Act is key, the AFA Act is key, Cooperative Societies Act is key, the Kauro Act, they will be somehow influenced by this particular bill. There are certain amendments. The Capital Markets Authority Act, as well as they are also going to be, and the amended version of the 2016 Capital Markets Authority is going to be also affected. And the authority to regulate spot commodity markets, such as the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, has been given by this particular bill. The Warehouse Receipting System, as it were, Act of 2019, has also been invoked in this particular legislation, where the Act provides for the warehousing of agricultural goods in government warehouses and facilities. And coffee is one of the commodities that we have to securely store, because once it is in green, in a bean form, the green bean, coffee will be always stolen because it's actually regarded as green gold. In terms of promotion, Honourable Speaker, the bill aims at promoting globally competitive coffee industry by providing the framework for the registration and licensing of various players along the value chain. It also promotes the vertical integration of the coffee value chain at the production level and achieves economies of scale in managing the risk within the coffee industry. Honorable Speaker, the bill also goes further to set up, during the discussions within the informality coming up with this bill, the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock did invite stakeholders to submit their memoranda. And several stakeholders, Honorable Speaker, brought their memorandum. I wish to mention that we had invited and we got memoranda from the Nairobi Coffee Exchange itself, the Capital Markets Authority, a certain farmer called Mr. Caleb Kipyegon, the Council of Governors submitted their memoranda, Kenya Association of Manufacturers were there, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, or KEBROPA, also promoted their memoranda, as well as the Coffee Reforms Steering Committee, which was involved in going through the coffee study of the coffee itself. So the stakeholders' feedback on our speaker, I may wish to highlight a few as I close. Most of the stakeholders supported the enactment of the Coffee Bill 2023. They said it's a good way to move, good way forward, and they also indicated that we need to adopt this particular legislation. They also observed that the Coffee Board of Kenya would increase efficiency in the sector due to reduced bureaucracy and also expedient processes.
I thought Senator Mohammed Chute is in the house.
Yeah, Speaker, I'm not ready. I have just read it.
You're not ready?
Yes. Thank you.
We'll defer that particular order. Next order.
Order number 25, the County Public Finance Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Kathuri Murungi. Not in the house. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 26, the Energy Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 42 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Speaker, as you may know, I am a member of the Senate Energy Committee. I rise to move this amendment bill as a proud member of that committee that is chaired by the Senator for Nyeri, the Honorable Wamatinga. Honorable Speaker, in March of 2023, at a sitting of that committee on energy, there was a resolution by the committee to conduct an inquiry into the high cost of electricity. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that many of us in this House have interacted with. Honorable Speaker, this is an issue that had, at that particular moment in time, occupied many discussions around the country. When we began this process, Honorable Speaker, at the point at which this inquiry was initiated, Kenyans were buying Kenya shillings 100 at that particular moment in time would get you only 3 units of electricity, Mr. Speaker. That in fact, out of 100 shillings, 51 shillings were going to taxes and other charges and levies. Mr. Speaker, the committee did conduct a proper inquiry, including meetings with various stakeholders. I remember the then Minister for Energy, the Honorable Chirchir, stakeholders from Kenya Power, from Ketraco, stakeholders from the independent power producers, and others appeared before the committee. And Mr. Speaker, there is a report of the committee that was there's a report of the committee that was prepared in September of 2023. I don't recall the exact date when it was tabled in this House, but Mr. Speaker, it is a matter of record in this House that in fact that report has been tabled before this House. Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to go through some of the observations and recommendations of the committee, and I do this because those observations and recommendations out of that inquiry are the ones that informed the proposed amendments to the Energy Act in order to seal some of the gaps that we found as a committee. Honorable Speaker, at the on page 7 of the report where it has the chairpersons forward, and allowed me just to read. Honorable Speaker, one of the things that the committee noted is that there is a general opaqueness in the disclosure of the beneficial owners of power producing companies, with the majority of them listing companies, foreign companies, as shareholders. There was another observation, Honorable Speaker, at paragraph number 12, that the dispatch of power currently done by KPLC is not based on least cost merit order, therefore preference is not given to the cheaper power producers. Honorable Speaker, another important observation that informed the amendments is that at paragraph 20, you will see the committee says that some power purchase agreements provide for mechanisms of discounts once a certain threshold is met. For example, Lake Turkana Wind Power Limited offers 50% of the energy charge rate once they attain the discount energy threshold. And Lake Turkana Wind Power did appear before the committee, in fact, in a meeting that was held in this very chamber, and attested to this, Honorable Speaker. They were, in fact, protesting that Kenyans were being denied this benefit, yet that the benefit is actually woven into the power purchase agreement. If you go to the recommendations, Mr. Speaker, on page 8, flowing all the way to page 9 and 10, there's a recommendation there that Kenya Power should dispatch power based on merit order, giving preference to the cheaper power producers. Honorable Speaker, this amendment bill is not complicated and it's not long. Mr. Speaker, there are only 3 proposals in this particular amendment bill, and as I have read to you the recommendations and observations of the Committee on Energy, they actually all flow from those recommendations and observations of the committee. If you look at clause 2, Honorable Speaker, of the amendment bill, I have proposed that an amendment be inserted in the Energy Act immediately after section 134. So this will be the new section 134A that requires a generating entity to enter into an energy purchase agreement to sell electrical energy to a licensed entity specified in the 3rd schedule. And then we go to what that a generating entity must consider when entering into such an agreement. Honorable Speaker, we have introduced the principles of public finance enshrined under Article 201 of the Constitution into the decision to enter into an energy purchase agreement. And these principles, Honorable Speaker, are openness and accountability, public participation in financial matters, good governance to ensure that public funds are used in a prudent and responsible way, sustainability, Honorable Speaker. This is as a direct result of the feedback that we got during the sittings of the committee to inquire into why these electricity bills are as high as they are, and that Kenyans are complaining that something needs to be done. As you saw, Honorable Speaker, there was a clear manifestation of opaqueness in how people determine whether we in fact need to enter into fresh power purchase agreements. So, Honorable Speaker, we have introduced a requirement there that prior to procurement of electrical power, there has to be a feasibility study that is conducted to identify whether there is enough demand for electricity purchase which cannot be met by the existing production. Honorable Speaker, we were told, if you look at your power bill, there is something called a capacity charge. That capacity charge is charged on every consumer of electricity for all the capacity that has been contracted by Kenya Power to supply power. And that capacity means, Honorable Speaker, every time you issue a license to a power producer, for as long as that capacity to supply is there, we are paying for it whether they are actually dispatched or electricity is actually bought from their generating units or not. So, Honorable Speaker, the committee felt, and this is what is informed my amendment, that before you give any other person a contract on purchase of power so that they are setting up any new plants, a feasibility study must be conducted to tell Kenyans that in fact the existing capacity cannot meet the requirements at the particular moment. Honorable Speaker, if you look at 134A 3B, there is also a requirement to ensure the process of procurement of electrical energy complies with the procedures set out in the Public Procurement and Disposals Act. Mr. Speaker, what we have seen in the past is there is really no openness in how these people who hold these power purchase agreements ended up as suppliers to Kenya Power, because the public is seldom informed and there is no information at all when they are being procured, on what terms, and it requires an inquiry of the House, such as the one that we conducted, for us to even know the terms that they have been given. So, Honorable Speaker, we have introduced that amendment to ensure greater transparency. Then, Honorable Speaker, as was noted by the committee, it is something that doesn't make any sense, that you have cheaper available power, but yet the person who is responsible for dispatching electricity at Kenya Power decides to go for more expensive sources of electricity, such as those thermal generators, Honorable Speaker. And evidence was given here, I have alluded to it, by Lake Turkana Wind Power themselves, that in their PPA, and we go to see that PPA ourselves, if a certain threshold of uptake is reached, we can enjoy as high a discount as 50%. But as of the time when they were appearing before us, that threshold had never been met, because for some reason, and Kenya Power themselves will explain to the public why that is the case, they are never given that priority to be able to pass that benefit to Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, there is a proposal there again to tie the hands of Kenya Power so that priority is given to those who generate electricity through renewable technology. Honorable Speaker, this morning, the team from Talo, Kenya, appeared before the Senate Committee of Energy to discuss the field development plan for the Lokicha Basin. Honorable Speaker, from the evidence that was given by the management of Talo themselves, there is a recognition across the world that now people are moving away from fossil fuel energy, and that in fact we are struggling. The reason why the field development plan and the exploration in Lokicha Basin has delayed, Honorable Speaker, is that funding and money and credit for the development of oil fields have dried up because of the increasing awareness on the need for us to cut down on fossil fuels, and many people are now moving towards investment in green technology and green energy. So they are struggling. The management of Talo themselves told us today the money has simply dried up. There are very few investors who are now willing to put money into oil exploration. Because if you look at places such as the EU, Honorable Speaker, and other places, there has even been a moratorium that has been put that beyond 2030, vehicles that operate using diesel or oil-based fuel, Honorable Speaker, will be phased out, and therefore there is a move towards greener sources of energy. So, Honorable Speaker, we want even Kenya Power to give priority to generating entities that generate through renewable technology. And we gave the example of Lake Turkana Wind Power. We have Kipeto as well, and even the solar generators should be given priority as opposed to those who generate using heavy fuel oil, which is very expensive. The last amendment, Honorable Speaker, or the second or third one, Honorable Speaker, on the disclosures, the committee noted that many of the IPPs that have, Mr. Speaker, can I get some? Honorable Speaker, as was noted by the committee, many of the IPPs that hold power purchase agreements as we speak today, Honorable Speaker, have not fully disclosed their ownership. And in fact, it was a struggle for us here in the Energy Committee to even get to know the beneficial owners of some of these companies. There is a great suspicion amongst members of the committee and in fact the larger public that wherever there is secrecy as to the ownership of a company, we would not be surprised, Honorable Chair, to find, and as a lawyer you know, people hiding behind shell companies and claiming that this is a company that is operating out of India, for instance, and yet the true owners are people here in the ministries and in government. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, one of the recommendations we have made is that the Kenya Power, or whoever it is that will be running our grid, can only award a power purchase agreement to an entity that has fully disclosed its beneficial owners. So that, Mr. Speaker, it should be standard practice. If you have something to hide, then we shouldn't be doing business with you. You should be able to tell us outright who the owners of the company are. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, would you believe it that even as a committee, we were very shocked to find out that we do not know as a country how many of these power purchase agreements exist. Nobody tells us, even as Parliament, how many of these power purchase agreements exist. There are people sitting on power purchase agreements just quietly. And Honorable Speaker, we are paying for capacity charge for things that we are not even aware of, where they exist and where they're generating from. So, Honorable Speaker, the committee felt it important that we have a register of all the power purchase agreements that it has entered into, and Honorable Speaker, this must be published on its website and in the annual audit reports of the purchasing entity. The register in that subsection, Honorable Speaker, we require it to be prepared within 90 days from the date of operation of this section and be open to inspection by members of the public in accordance with Section 5 of the Access to Information Act. Honorable Speaker, lastly, we have provided that the authority shall not approve an energy purchase agreement which fails to comply with all these provisions that we are introducing. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move. And I want to request the Honorable Stuart Mazayo to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Energy Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 42 of 2023, be now read a second time. I will invite members to contribute to this bill, and from my dashboard, Senator Gloria Magoma Orwoba.
Chair, thank you for that. Before I add my voice on this, Chair, it's very hot in chambers. I think you have seen Senator Sifuna sweating. I don't know whether the AC is not working. And Chair, we have seen a lot of renovations happening. And this is why, you know, the question is who is approving these renovations? They should ask us. We'll tell them we want the AC, we want this. But Chair, there's a lot of funny things happening out here. We have a new red carpet, I don't know, new lights, new what. Chair, it is imperative that as a house of oversight, we also learn to oversight ourselves. This budget that is being spent on the funny things that are happening in this building, Chair, we need to know, because you know, I'm sure you sit in the liaison committee. We are opening the financial year with pending bills, which none of our chairs of committees are able to address. So when we sit here and we are sweating, and yet they have replaced the red carpet, which nobody asked for, Chair. Nobody asked for a new red carpet, but they have replaced it. We need to understand that oversight should begin in this house, Chair. So if they can put the AC on, we would really appreciate.
Clerk, could you make arrangements such in terms
kindly, because of all the things that we didn't need,
Senator
the one
Gloria,
thing we needed was the AC.
Your comments chamber for you to utilize in the session. But
Chair, austerity measures, Chair. Austerity measures. You know, when we see a new red carpet, we wonder really, who is doing these things? You know, is it necessary? Who are the tenderpreneurs? Chair, I would like to add my voice, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to add my voice on this bill that is being fronted by our senators from the broad-based government. Mr. Speaker, we have to start appreciating that this is the kind of robust engagements that we have to have in this house, Mr. Speaker. And for the first time in the history probably of the debate of this house, you can see that myself and Senator Sifuna and Senator Eddy and Mazayo, we are speaking the same language. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of independent purchase producers, electrical energy producers, Mr. Speaker. I think we have had a conversation of, first of all, the fact that it is not transparent. We do not know who these entities are. We do not know what they are producing, where they are actually supplying, Mr. Speaker. And it is time that we actually unveil that we actually make sure that Kenyans understand what is happening, Mr. Speaker. As you can see in the proposed amendment where they're saying that a generating entity may enter into an energy purchase agreement to sell electrical energy to a licensed entity specified in the third schedule. Mr. Speaker, what we are trying to address is that we finally are able to get value for our money, Mr. Speaker. We finally are able to understand why there are numerous blackouts, and we can hold people accountable, Mr. Speaker. So I want to first of all congratulate the mover of this bill, Mr. Speaker, because it is a timely bill, particularly because this is the time when we need to make the very unpopular decisions of kicking out the cartels. Mr. Speaker, the understanding of what we do in Senate, many people don't really get it. It's not just about bills and oversight, Mr. Speaker, but it is ensuring that we hold people accountable to the last, down to the grassroots, Mr. Speaker. So even the bills we bring here, it's not that we like debating, but it is to address the issues of the lack of transparency in government services, the lack of transparency in some of the procurements that we are having, particularly with these IPPs, Mr. Speaker. And so that is the reason why I am supporting this bill by Senator Sifuna. And I do hope that we have other engagements and other robust discussions, Mr. Speaker, due to this, what we call the broad-based government. I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roba. Senator Godfrey Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also contribute to this very important bill, the Energy Amendment Bill 2023 by Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna. Mr. Speaker, I think this bill is long overdue. I have worked in the energy sector previously, before I joined politics. I used to work for the then Electricity Regulatory Board, which now transformed to the Energy Regulatory Commission, and now which is called IPRA. And this problem has been there. The issue of cost of power in this country. The cost of power, one of the factors that contribute to high cost of power in this country is this very expensive, secretive, and satanic energy purchase agreement between the Kenya government and some independent power producers. This bill, Mr. Speaker, will help us unlock the problem that has existed in this country for many years. For many years. So this bill will ensure that the so-called independent power producers who engage in this purchase agreement are known. So Senator Sifuna is seeking to resolve the problem of disclosure. We must know who these companies are, what are the faces behind these companies, what are the interests, what are the agreements saying. It is not right that a government institution, Mr. Speaker, can enter into agreements with the individuals or private institutions without the knowledge of the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, maybe this problem really highlights the main problem we have in this country. The main problem of disclosure of material facts in agreements of this nature. And I want to say that maybe we need to amend this to ensure that all these agreements are subjected to parliamentary approval. So, I want to encourage Senator Sifuna to maybe look at the amendments and improve them further, to require that these agreements, because they affect our economy in a large way, must be looked at by Parliament so that the public interest is protected. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the amendment is going to give us disclosure of ownership information. Who are the owners of these entities, and how much are they drawing from the people of Kenya for their personal interest, and what is the cost at which they are selling electricity to our public institution, particularly KenGen. So I think it is very timely, and I want to encourage members, particularly on the aspect of disclosure, to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, without disclosure, then, as it has been stated in the memorandum of the bill, then we are not sure what this money is doing. Whether this money is being used for money laundering, whether this money is part of tax evasion schemes or corruption. So disclosure will help us deal with all the social issues around the non-disclosure of these agreements. Mr. Speaker, I don't know why it is so difficult for the government to provide information on some of these things. We struggled with SGR. Up to now, we do not have clear information on some of the contracts of SGR. Mr. Speaker, we are now struggling with we have struggled with these independent power producers, and even now, the biggest debate in this country is about Adani matter, which I can see the chairman of Roads and Transport is smiling. He has done a good job, and he's also my member of CPIC, to try and deal with the problem. Mr. Speaker, I think it's high time that we demand that all such major agreements, particularly between government and private investors or individuals, must be disclosed to Parliament and must be processed in this House, Mr. Speaker, because they affect our people, and we exist in this Parliament because we represent the people under Article 1 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other important issue which I want to agree with the mover of this bill is the matter of ensuring that these agreements are aligned or comply to the principles of public finance management under Article 201 of the Constitution, on matters of openness, on matters of accountability, on matters of public participation, on matters of generally good governance in managing public resources, prudent management and responsible management of public resources, on matters of sustainability, whether the agreement is sustainable or not. So we want a situation whereby such agreements, the value for money must be assessed. And therefore, the proposal to ensure that the Public Finance Management Act is complied with, I think is a laudable proposal in terms of ensuring, for example, public participation. Public participation aligns to what I've said earlier, the involvement of Parliament in this process, the involvement of stakeholders in the energy sector in this process is very key. So I want to thank the mover for also including that. The other aspect, Mr. Speaker, is compliance to the best practices in procurement, particularly aligning this process to the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act that we already have. How do we identify these IPPs? We just wake up and say so-and-so will be an IPP and he becomes an IPP, or there must be a competitive process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these are the same questions we are asking on the airport deal also. Is it, do you just wake up and say so-and-so, bring a proposal, or you open the tender to competition so that you have as many people bringing proposal on how they can manage some of these utilities? Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very commendable amendment which I support. Mr. Speaker, the other very important requirement is a requirement that that these companies or these so-called IPPs, the agreements are made public on their website, in their annual audit reports, so that Kenyans can look at it and make their concerns known, so that the value for money can be assessed and that Kenyans can now get a good deal from it. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have to state very clearly that the energy purchase agreement is a rip-off. This country, the people of this country have been ripped off for years, Mr. Speaker. And some of the people who own these IPPs, Mr. Speaker, we are told, are either former government officials or people who worked for these entities, Mr. Speaker, these public utilities, like Kenya Power, KenGen. Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss this bill, we need also to find a way of how we can deal with those who have stolen from us through expensive power purchase agreement. As we support this bill, Mr. Speaker, we should also look for the thieves. I call them the thieves, Mr. Speaker, because this is a stealing, who have stolen from us for years, Mr. Speaker. They must be brought to book. We must know the faces behind it, and they must account for all the money they have stolen from Kenyans through these satanic and expensive agreements which they have signed with the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, also the provision to ensure that Section 5 of the Access to Information Act is an important amendment. And access to information, Mr. Speaker, is a constitutional right in this country. But this right is not, it has been curtailed, Mr. Speaker, in many of these public offices. And this is a piece of information that should be easily be available. I was surprised that even the committee had difficulties accessing these contracts, Mr. Speaker. It should not be a problem, Mr. Speaker, to assess a contract between investors and the Kenyan public through some of these public utilities. So these amendments, Mr. Speaker, will make it easy for the public to access some of this critical information and be able to process it, ensure that it is aligned to the interests of the people, it is aligned to good practices, and it has value for money. So these amendments, Mr. Speaker, are going to ensure that the long-standing problem of expensive power purchase agreement between the Kenyan government through its key utilities, energy utilities, and the independent power producers is handled. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, even as we pass this bill, I want to encourage the committee not to tire, to continue investigating this matter so that we get to know who are these dark forces behind the IPPs. Why is it impossible to bring to book these people? Are they living on this earth or they are living elsewhere, Mr. Speaker? If there are people who are living on this earth and are in this country, why is it so difficult to get them? Mr. Speaker, if you start calculating how much this country has lost through these IPPs, some of them were started during President Moi's time, to date, many years back, Mr. Speaker, you will probably find that this is the money we need to build another airport, and we don't need to bring Adani here. We can get money from these criminals, Mr. Speaker, to build an airport and to build other utilities. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend Senator Sifuna for this very, very important amendment and a very bold amendment. I know the owners of IPPs will be out to fight these amendments, but I want to ask Senate to stand firm. Mr. Speaker, this House has, in the recent days, been seen in the eyes of the people as a house that is serving Kenyans. This last week, what the Committee of Roads and Transport did really gave Kenyans another fresh sense that we have an institution that is working for us. Now, this one is the second one, Mr. Speaker, and I want to encourage our committees to deal with issues that are impactful to the people of Kenya, so that this Senate is seen to be working for the people of Kenya. And one of the things, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to digress a bit, is that we know we are going to have DORA coming back to us, where there is a recommendation that we should reduce shareable revenue, Mr. Speaker, from 400 billion to 380 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, I think this is the day that Senate needs to rise up and say no. We cannot be told that every time we have a drop in the national revenue, it is the Senate, it is the devolution that suffers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to stand firm and protect our counties and demonstrate that Senate does not exist because of politics alone. We exist to support our counties and to protect our counties. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to support this bill and encourage the other members who are going to contribute to also support this bill so that we can unlock one of the major problems we have been having in the energy sector, that is expensive power purchase agreements which lead to high cost of power, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Senator Sotsi. Senator Samson Terage.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I rise to support this Energy Amendment Bill 2023 and I congratulate Senator Sifuna, the Senator of the great people of Nairobi City County, and also one of the longest serving Secretary General of ODM, the longest at the moment because others have been moved out of the office, Chair, and I hope he survives longer, although nowadays he's trending on some interesting grounds. Mr. Chair, and I am happy that in as much as he's a first timer in this house, he continues to prove himself that he's a man of the moment and still. And I can see, Mr. Speaker, the minority leader is excited because he's a ranking member and also is one of the senior lawyers in this country, but not a ranking member like you. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me to support this amendment. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta formed a task force to review power purchasing agreements. One of them, the biggest challenge in the cost of electricity in this country has been the buy-in by the independent power producers that sell electricity expensively to Kenya Power and Lighting Company. While, Mr. Speaker, there are many challenges that Kenya Power and Lighting Company, from in my village in Kapkeben in Mosoriot Township in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, out of 24 hours, Kenya Power decides to switch off electricity for almost 20 hours in a day. In fact, it becomes worse when it rains, because Kenya Power is like they now remove electricity because it's raining, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the challenge and the cost of doing business in this country, and you know me, I use domestic power, not even talking about the access of power within Nandi County and across the country, which continues to be a big challenge. I know for Senator Sifuna, he might have a privilege that most of the city is covered by electricity. But the biggest elephant in the room, Senator Sifuna will tell you, is out of 24 hours, 3/4 of the time there are blackouts, and it affects the business, even the small businesses within Nairobi City County, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, as we try, I know I've noticed, Mr. Speaker, that the demand and supply, there is a thinning of 4%. And the cabinet the other day, although I want to thank the National Assembly, they declined to give a note for opening of power purchase agreement through IPPs because it was not clear. It's still opaque, Mr. Speaker. While we agree we need a constant supply of electricity, that is not a justification to buy electricity expensively and in an opaque manner, Mr. Speaker. And that is what the former president initiated through the task force that was appointed to review power purchasing agreements. And that report, Mr. Speaker, was given back on 28 September 2021. Mr. Speaker, in that report, the government had proposed that the cost of electricity will come down by 3%. If that would have come, Mr. Speaker, the cost of buying tokens, be it prepaid or postpaid by customers across the country, by domestic customers, by industrial customers with that leverage that Kenya Power and Lighting is trying to provide, Mr. Speaker, including the street lighting, the heavy users of electricity in this country, Mr. Speaker, apart from domestic users, the cost should have come down by 33% after that report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was resolved, and I would request that the Energy Committee, which I think Senator Sifuna sits, unfortunately I can't see the chair of Energy Committee, should tell us that the recommendation of that report, Mr. Speaker, was that within 4 months at the submission of that report, there should have been renegotiations of power producing agreements or power purchase agreements, in renegotiating of IPPs because it was very expensive and opaque. I want to request, as I support the amendment by Senator Sifuna, that the Energy Committee should tell us the outcome of renegotiating by Kenya Power and Lighting Company. And on the issue of power purchasing agreement through the IPPs, what was the outcome, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, are you aware that there are many power purchasing agreements that remain unsigned? It should have been cancelled. So I want to encourage the Energy Committee to look at this issue because this is how money is being stolen. It is violating under Article 201, Mr. Speaker, where we are talking about openness, transparency, and accountability in financial matters in the Republic. Because if up to today there are PPAs, power purchasing agreements, through independent power purchasing suppliers to the Kenyan Power, who sell to Kenyan Power Lighting Company, onward transmission to domestic and industrial use, Mr. Speaker, then we have a problem as a country. I think as we support this amendment of the Energy Act by Senator Sifuna, the Energy Committee should tell us if these power purchasing agreements that were unsigned have been cancelled. And that is corruption, Mr. Speaker. If it works, looks like a duck, then it is a duck, Mr. Speaker, or an ugly swan, as somebody would say it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in that report, in line with this, there were supposed to be reforms within Kenya Power and Lighting Company. We are not yet to be told what happened with the investigations into the faulty transformers that were being left here in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, in Soled. No one can tell us up to today what happened to faulty transformers, who was held accountable. There are many primary schools, even in Bomet, in Nairobi here, in Nandi, in Migori, in Kilifi, Mr. Speaker, that have perpetual faulty transformers. No one has told us the audit on those faulty transformers, what became of it. You remember Senator Stewart Matsayo in the last session, we raised you and cry over faulty transformers. Up to now, no one has been arrested or charged in court, or the fate of those faulty transformers here in Nairobi. I shudder when I think that faulty transformers might have been even supplied to you or to Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. We need to know the outcome. And therefore, the reform of Kenya Power and Lighting Company, because the problems of power purchasing agreements and even independent power producing agreements, Mr. Speaker, is the lethargy, the opaque nature the Kenya Power and Lighting Company has. And therefore, even in that report, the task force report of 2021, there was a proposal that we must restructure and clean up Kenya and Power and Lighting Company management, Mr. Speaker, because they are perpetuating systemic corruption. You do token purchase, the people who are doing postpaid, there are people who are doing prepaid, Mr. Speaker, there are people who do not have electricity. What can you say? Is it not corruption? When our whole school or our whole village goes without electricity for months, yet Kenya Power find it's normal. I think it is shocking. And Mr. Speaker, I saw the CS in charge and the good brother of Senator Sifuna, CS Opio Wandai, saying that cabinet secretary, saying that Adani is now doing a purchase agreement on that issue. And I think the chair of roads is familiar what we are talking about, Mr. Speaker. They were arguing that the reason they want to improve the transmission lines, it has become old. And therefore, I want to agree with Sifuna. When you don't communicate the clarity of information, the policy of government should always be crystal clear. Say that when CS Opia Wandai today says there is an engagement or privately initiated plan by Adani to provide support through even purchase of transmission line through Bomet all the way to Awasi, Kisumu, the improvement of power lines, the pylons across, Kenyans to understand. But if you do these things in secrecy, it violates Article 34, 35, Article 201, Mr. Speaker, that Senator Sifuna, you know Senator Sifuna and the House, we should not be too prescriptive. The reason we have to make prescriptive laws, Mr. Speaker, and you are a learned senior in this country, having been classmates with Senator Sifuna, is we have to be prescriptive in this country. We have to tell you don't do this. It is because of our bad manners as a country. It is because what was it added is already in Article 201. Why is this add to make public a power purchasing agreement through IPP? Until Senator Sifuna tells Kenya Power, no, you must do this, the amendment. That is the bad manners that we have in this country of impunity and corruption, Mr. Speaker. In that report, Mr. Speaker, the report of 2021 demanded that we do forensic audit. And I want to ask the Energy Committee through your office, Mr. Speaker, to tell us these power purchasing agreements through IPPs. There was a statement, Mr. Speaker, and I remember in the last session, there was a statement, an investigation done by this House that showed that you have a local company, IPP, it is a local Kenyan registered company, but is selling power per kilowatt, Mr. Speaker, to Kenya Power in dollars. Yet it is a Kenyan company. Mr. Speaker, can you believe the impunity that is roaming around in this country, Mr. Speaker? The company is registered here in Kenya. The director is here in Kenya. The trade is domiciled here in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, but they sell the power to Kenyan Power and Lighting for distribution and transmission through in dollars, Mr. Speaker, or in pounds. Those are the people that forensic audit should have been done and be charged in court, because that is public rip-off of a hard-earned money, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say in this issue of openness on power purchasing agreements, especially through independent power producers, Personally, Mr. Speaker, I don't have a problem. We are not saying that IPPs or people do independent power producers in this country, Mr. Speaker, they should not do business. But we want them to do clean business. We want them to abide by the rules and the law of the Republic of Kenya. If I establish a solar power generating company in Kilifi, or a wind energy, and I intend to sell to Kenya Power and Lighting Company, why don't I sell it in Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker? And that is the openness, the accountability, and transparency, Mr. Speaker. And as the chair of the Senate caucus, and I'm happy you attended that session of open governance, Mr. Speaker, one of the issues, Senator Sifuna, through the Speaker, was legislative openness. We must be open in terms of legislation and implementation by executive, Mr. Speaker, going into the future. So even as Mr. Speaker, and I want to say, the cabinet and the parliament should not allow opening of PPAs until we agree on some ground rules. Because I can go and register my company in Bomet and decide to tell to Kenya Power in dollars. It will be a public ripoff. And I want to ask the Secretary General of ODM, CSOPO and I is your immediate former member of ODM. Kindly advise him that the only way he can redeem the image of Kenya Power and Lighting Company is to make sure the IPPs that has been signed for the last 10 years are laid bare in the public. And the truth shall set us, all of us, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy on the issue of Adani. He has come out quickly. He didn't wait for the airports, the way we went for the airports, Mr. Speaker. Even we could not access documentation. We had to use power of oath, power of intimidation, power of coercion for production of documents on Adani JKI deal, Mr. Speaker. And that is why you had the young man the other day on Gen Z protest saying, and I'm happy that young man, he has got a sponsor. He was saying, uwanja wa ndege umeuzwa. Imeuziwa Muhindi, was being asked, umeuziwa nani? And we thought it is a joke. Only when the issue appeared before the Senator Chair of Roads, and I want to ask Senator Karungo Wadhangwa, the way he's standing on issues of Murima, strongly, he should stand on this investigation of Adani, Mr. Speaker. He should fear nobody. The Bible says, Mr. Speaker, don't fear that kill the body and the soul, that kill the flesh and the body, but do not fear only who kills the soul and the spirit. I want to challenge Senator Karungo Wadhangwa. The way is strong standing on matters of Murima. He should stand strong on the issues of Adani. We want to know what really happened to the airport, Mr. Speaker, including the Kerenga airstrip in Kericho. Has it been sold? That is the question many Kenyans have. What is the issue of private partnership in this country under the Act, Section 4 and Section 2 and Section 40, Mr. Speaker? I want to challenge Senator Karungo Wadhangwa, Mr. Speaker. The way he spoke with authority on Sunday in Kirinyaga, he should speak to these matters with the same figure and authority, and he should behave like a miracle senator for who he is, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, point number 5, on this issue of moratorium, we should not lift a moratorium on the issue of power purchasing agreements through IPPs, Mr. Speaker. And that is the point. Before we lift a moratorium that was imposed in 2021 by the report and the task force that investigated the issue of power purchasing agreement and IPPs, Mr. Speaker, we must agree that there are ground rules that needs to be set, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for example, Kenya Power and Lighting Company buys from KenGen, Mr. Speaker, at 5 shillings and 30 cents per kilowatt. But when they buy from independent power producers, my brother Senator Eddie, they buy it at 195 shillings. Yet KenGen sells to Kenya Power at 5 shillings 30 cents. But when they get IPPs, these Mikoras, these corrupt individuals, Mr. Speaker, who are being protected, they buy it at 195 shillings per kilowatt, Mr. Speaker. That is more than 190 shillings from KenGen. And this is a public report, Mr. Speaker, that Senator Sifuna, we need to know who these companies are. What is the contract that we are doing, Mr. Speaker, going into the future? So, Mr. Speaker, I agree there should be a register that should be open to the public. Let us know who are these IPPs, what is the engagement of power producing agreement, Mr. Speaker, so that Kenyans can access affordable electricity, Mr. Speaker. We cannot be talking about climate change and green energy if the person in Nyatike, in Mikori, cannot access electricity. They will buy koroboi and they will pollute the environment. Or they will fell down the trees in somewhere in Bomet, Mr. Speaker, in Jebalungu, they will be forced to go to the forest, cut down and light a fire. But if we can produce power to be accessible and affordable to everybody, Mr. Speaker, even in Tindret, where some of us come from, even in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we must make the power in this country to be affordable. Even as we talk about cottage industries, Mr. Speaker, there are many people, my people are farmers, Mr. Speaker, of milk, dairy. We want to process and do our own farming. There are many people who are doing chicken farming or poultry farming. They need electricity. There are people who are processing dairy farm inputs, Mr. Speaker. They need electricity, Mr. Speaker. So I think this amendment is long overdue. I want to thank the Deputy Minority Leader, Minority Whip, that this is important, Mr. Speaker. I have noted that there have been serious renovations. I don't know whether it was the cost of the JNC. That is why we have been doing renovations, Mr. Speaker. We are asking the other day that we need to, Mr. Speaker, to be, what do you call these issues of being magnanimous in terms of spending, Mr. Speaker. But we are seeing opulence even in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. The other day, the JNC ran us out of town because of opulence. Now, Parliament, you can see that we didn't need a new carpet. Mr. Speaker, our committees, in fact, I wish the money that was being used to do renovation of paint, of carpet, we should have been given to committees to go and visit Naivasha, CGDC Naivasha, go and visit Wanainji in Kisumu, in Bomet, and ask them what is the challenge with electricity. We should be visiting projects in Bomet, in Nandi, in Migori, in Kiambu. Mr. Speaker, can you believe we don't even have funds as a Senate Public Accounts Committee to visit even Dandora Stadium here in Nairobi, or even visit Toi Market? But we have, Mr. Speaker, but we have money to buy a new carpet. We have money to do a paint, Mr. Speaker. I think as a Parliament also we must have a priorities, right? I had written through your office, through the joint services, Bwana Nyandiere, to provide evidence, Mr. Speaker, because we cannot be saying we are oversighting others, yet we cannot oversight ourselves, Mr. Speaker. Is the House aware that the pending bill of Senate is around 500 million? You sit in liaison committee. You cannot do even a public hearing on this matter, Mr. Speaker, even as we go for public participation. Mr. Speaker, with very many remarks, I want to thank Senator Sifuna for bringing this amendment. I hope we'll very fast-tracked. In the spirit of the broad-based, the President will sign it into the law, and we can be able to discuss the issue of power purchasing agreement, Mr. Speaker, going into the future, so that we can ensure, Mr. Speaker, the issue has been resolved. On the PPPs, I want to propose, Mr. Speaker, to Senator Sifuna and all of us in 2 minutes, that we need to relook about private initiated investments in the country, especially under PP, private partnership, Mr. Speaker. We can see the debacle of Adani, both in energy sector and in aviation sector, Mr. Speaker. Let us review the law, even the regulations, Mr. Speaker. Say that when you are doing PIPs, you want to do privately initiated as an investor, Mr. Speaker. There should be the law that governs and ensure that there is accountability. Let us be open as a country. If Parliament today wants to do PPP, let the parliamentarians or the public know why, how, who they are, how is the financing model shall be, Mr. Speaker, so that we reduce this chaotic manner of responding to issues of Adani, Mr. Speaker. Because we have been told now it's moved to health sector, it is moving to the aviation sector, it's moving to energy sector. Please, I want to, through you, Chair, in conclusion, please, I send Senator Sifuna, kindly tell CSOP and I to be careful on this issue of Adani, because he's still your member, or former member. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie.
Chair, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to support this amazing bill by the great Senator of Nairobi, and also still my SG in the ODM party, because the mischief that the Senator of Nandi is trying to bring is that my SG now is the SG of the broad-based government. That one is now akin to interfering with my certificate in 2027. So I want to guarantee you that this is the SG of ODM, who is still the custodian of my ticket. But Mr. Speaker, on a more serious note, this amendment is a very serious amendment. Mr. Speaker, EPRA, in the year 2022, just after COVID, I remember it was May, when EPRA released its daily systems, operations, and dispatch analysis report, which did indicate at that time, Mr. Speaker, that the Kenyan demand for electricity had just hit 2,051 megawatts. That, I think, was the highest the country had by that time. And remember, that was at a time that we were just coming from, we were just in a post-COVID era, immediately after the economic meltdown that was brought by COVID. But, Mr. Speaker, that demand, if you looked at it against the national capacity for electricity, we had actually overshot our capacity at that time. Because even by 2018, Mr. Speaker, the capacity that we had in the national grid, Mr. Speaker, was 2,351. There is something that number showed us. And it's important because the country is gearing towards trying to get to a 2030 national grid of about 15,000 megawatts. And you find that it is only in Kenya that, number one, Mr. Speaker, the cost of production of electricity by independent power producers, Mr. Speaker, is very low. Yet, when it hits the national grid, we get the highest electricity tariffs that then affects our people. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the utilities that we have in our country at a national level are some of the most well-resourced utilities that cover their entire variable cost, yet they remain loss-making utilities, Mr. Speaker. Now, to add salt to injury, Mr. Speaker, the Kenyan taxpayer who ends up going to the market to get energy for whichever reason, whether it is commercial or domestic, Mr. Speaker, still faces the issue of low quality service, even when it comes to that. We sometimes get people with serious problems of specs of different meters that are not working, different meters are also not reflecting their payments. There's a lot of low quality service that we still see in the power consumption in this country, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, I cannot stress enough the importance of power in our country in terms of actually making sure that our national total productivity factor, in terms of the output that we get from every single citizen in this country, how important this is, Mr. Speaker. To give you perspective, Mr. Speaker, today a French kid consumes 50 times more electricity than a Kenyan kid. Mr. Speaker, a kid born in the United States consumes 70 times more electricity than a kid born in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Yet, competitively, Mr. Speaker, across the globe, Kenya has placed itself at an edge of using proper clean energy to the extent that almost over 80% of our energy is from renewable and clean sources, Mr. Speaker. What is the problem? This is where I come back and laud my friend and my very good SG, Senator for Nairobi, for dissecting the root cause of this problem. And that root cause, Mr. Speaker, is lack of public accountability and governance in terms of the consumption, production and consumption of power and energy in our country, Mr. Speaker. To be very specific, Mr. Speaker, the transparency throughout the procurement process of power has been wanting seriously in Kenya. And this amendment, Mr. Speaker, seeks to address this core issue of that transparency and accountability, not only in the governance structure, but also in the entire procurement process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I come from Migori County, where I happen to be very lucky to be born around Gogo Falls. And Gogo Falls is one of those Kenyan facilities that produces a lot of power, Mr. Speaker. But I can tell you that up to today, 95% of my village mate, where Gogo Power is based, have got no electricity in their homes. If you go to the other stretch, that is in Uriri constituency, Mr. Speaker, and if you go to the other stretch in Nyatike constituency, the penetration of power in Nyatike constituency, Mr. Speaker, is less than 23%. Yet Gogo Falls is found within the borders of these two amazing and very productive constituencies. That is Nyatike constituency and Uriri constituency. The pathetic nature of lack of consumption of power in my county, Mr. Speaker, spans all the way to places like Kuria West and Kuria East, Mr. Speaker. If today you go to Masangora, where people are very industrious and they're in the border of Kenya and Tanzania, where tourism could be cultivated properly when you think about the use of energy to think about the entire security infrastructure of that county, Mr. Speaker. The amazing people of Kuria, despite their industriousness, still wallow in the miasma of having less than 25% of power penetration, Mr. Speaker. And this, I can narrate, goes all the way to places like Rongo sub-county, to places like Awendo, where you'll find that an amazing industry called Awendo Soni, or the Southern Nyanza sugarcane industry, Mr. Speaker, is found. And yet the sugarcane growers and sugarcane cutters in those areas, Mr. Speaker, still depend, sometimes to extreme end, of using firewood to light their homes at night. And the question is not the question of capacity. The question here is the question of governance and transparency that can be able to make sure that the abundance that we have in this commodity called electricity can be able to percolate through every single home and all the industry that we have. So what does Senator Sifuna seek to do with this amazing bill, which is why I want to urge the entire House to support this bill? The first thing, Mr. Speaker, we find that today Kenya Power has signed over 45 power purchase agreements. Yet if you look through the internet and through all government bodies, Mr. Speaker, the information to the public with regards to the details of those agreements are completely scanty. You can't find them. And why are these information pieces important for the public? They are important because, Mr. Speaker, you cannot have power purchase agreements without detailing the cost structure and the resulting prices of power as they should be. And this is at the core of what this bill seeks to address. Because when you can be able to allow the public interact with the cost structure in those agreements, then they can be able to further interdict and be able to give input on what kind of prices these contracts should then result in the cost of power in our country, Mr. Speaker. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, even then, the moment these contracts are hidden to the public and the details of those contracts are hidden to the public, Mr. Speaker, there's something called cost competitiveness. We cannot have serious cost competitiveness in the entire market divide of power in this country. Why? Because every contract is individualized and is hidden from the proper market value that it should have, so that anybody can choose to make the cost of power anything they want, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this amendment is the core of making sure that we're going to have proper price reduction in the power sector, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, alongside the issue of cost of power, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of power stability and power quality within our borders. Mr. Speaker, you have seen a number of times, even in Nairobi recently and across the country, when you will be hearing from social media that you are going to face power blackouts. It has been announced by whichever body that you're going to face power blackouts. Yet, you do not have power to control when you'll get that power back. You do not have power to control how you can be able to get your alternatives. You do not have power to control how this is going to affect the payments that you already made to the national power grid, Mr. Speaker. To the extent that we can be able to figure out the impact of this lack of transparency on power stability and power quality, Mr. Speaker, this is the bill that we need. This is the bill that, for the first time, will be able to ensure that that procurement process of people who cannot be able to allow power stability when they are bringing them to the national grid, Mr. Speaker, to be guaranteed. The bill will give us that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, there's something close to my heart, and I've seen it through this bill and through the lenses of the presentation by Senator Sifuna, that this bill will help us procure and also cure, is the issue of safeguarding our environmental and our social priorities, Mr. Speaker. If we are not careful, despite the fact that as a country we are priding ourselves that we are leading in terms of clean energy, Mr. Speaker, the interaction with that with our environmental safety and social safety, Mr. Speaker, cannot be guaranteed if you cannot be able to interrogate the procurement processes. What do I mean by this, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we have seen a number of times when Kenya Power wants to look at things like metering processes. Because of that lack of transparency, you will find that the procurement officers will then keenly and carefully choose to actually ignore the specs that are required by standard of law, to the extent that in many cases, people end up going to bring specs that are defective, are of low quality, that then ensures that our people cannot be guaranteed in terms of their safety. In a number of places, you hear about KPLC not being able to meet its targets in neighborhoods such as slummy areas. Reason being, they are defective metering systems that people can bypass, that people can sometimes connect, and then before you realize, you are seeing a lot of fire hazards in different places. In Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, we constantly see a number of fire hazards that if you were to go down and interrogate where those fire hazards are coming from, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that it's because of defective metering and defective specs that have been put in a number of access points of electricity, Mr. Speaker. And this is putting our people in hazardous environment, is putting our people in very serious social problems, Mr. Speaker. Toy market recently lost property worth billions. That's where Senator Sifuna comes from. I think 2 days ago, there was serious fire in Mukuru Kwejenga, Mr. Speaker. These places are facing these fires, and nobody ever explains the sources of this fire. But if you look at the kind of connections that we are having and connectivity that we are having, defective and default connections in our neighborhood, Mr. Speaker, occasioned by serious lack of transparency on the specs of meter systems and any other systems of connectivity that we need in our neighborhood, Mr. Speaker, you can cry over this country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is extremely important that that entire process is completely unlocked. And this bill chooses to enable the country get to the bottom line of this problem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, along this is the structure of taxation on electricity with regards to the cost structure that is given to independent power producers, Mr. Speaker. This one is a very serious part of transparency and governance, Mr. Speaker. How does the national government choose to tell us which part of the money that they collect from KPLC and any other national grid providers comprises the taxation element and which one comprises the competitive revenue or competitive profit for these companies, Mr. Speaker? Because we have seen a number of times when KPLC complains, it does complain in form of we are being overtaxed and therefore we want to increase tariffs to respond to that taxation. But how is that taxation connected to the cost structure of their purchasing agreements, their power purchasing agreements with other independent producers? Because, Mr. Speaker, you can't tell me that out of 1 shilling, the government chooses to arbitrarily take 57 cents in terms of taxes from KPLC, and KPLC must throw that taxation back to the consumer and doesn't connect it to the cost of purchase or cost of production, if we may use that language, from the independent power producers, Mr. Speaker. The only reason why KPLC can use that impunity on Kenyans is if there is no proper transparency in terms of the agreements that it has had with every single private developers and private producers who are adding to its national grid. That is the only explanation, Mr. Speaker. And that is also tied squarely to being able to disclose the number of loans that KPLC and all the national grid suppliers can be able to argue in terms of the pricing of electricity, Mr. Speaker. Because otherwise, KPLC will just tell you that we took a number of loans here and there, and those loans, we helped XYZ developments. We were developing this utility at X cost, which is also not given proper detail, but just basic. And then before you realize, the cost keep on skyrocketing, Mr. Speaker. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I really want to laud and appreciate this bill that Senator Sifuna has brought into this House. And I hope that the senators in this House will see how important it is for us as a House to be able to build a functional element of the law that can be able to ensure that procurement processes of all power capacity is done through a very transparent process, which then in the end allows for a competitive, market-based, scientific production and consumption of power. And additionally, Mr. Speaker, this is the first bill, in my humble view, that will ensure that there is always public notice and public engagement on the intention to be able to sign contracts by independent power producers, and to be able to make sure that the public is always having a notice. I'm talking about the intention for power purchase agreements. Because without the public knowing about this intention, Mr. Speaker, that is how you end up in a situation where public is being invited on a conversation around a deal that has been done. Like the case for Andani, Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that the Minister for Energy or the CS for Energy currently has told us the capacity that Andani has, he's telling us the capacity that Andani has on the power production and consumption in this country at the age of Andani having been given the contract. So why is the public being invited to even give its views in the first place? If at the intentional moment there was no deliberateness in terms of engaging the public. So this bill is going to ensure that when there is an intention to sign any power purchase agreement or any power deal with any kind of institutions within or without government in the corporate sector, Mr. Speaker, then the public is noticed on that intention. And therefore, the public can then go ahead and be able to contribute before an action is taken to give the deal to any of those private developers, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, it is always important that when the public comes to engage in a public participation, it must have proper details in terms of information that informs robust contribution in that process, Mr. Speaker. This bill, as I finish, Mr. Speaker, gives the key and access for the public to be able to have details of contracts. So that when the public is engaging and making comment at any given period of intentionality, then it is giving comment based on data, based on science, and based on facts and figures on those power purchase agreements that are within their understanding.
Thank you, Senator Eddie. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Guys, there is this new product I am selling. Would you be interested?
What product?
Mind your business. It works wonders and it is good for human consumption.
Lucy is a cow. Okay, I've had enough for the day.
You bought a cow in Nairobi and you are all living in rentals.
Today you look very different and bombastic. Connie, are you going for an interview?
I learned indeed and I passed with flying colors. Oh, here we go again. Can't you guys keep private? This was private. You are just tap to anyone you people believe.
Friday night again.
Greetings in the name of the Most High Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside.
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice,
we have to do it twice.